Today I want to show you how to do the kettlebell swing. For me, the most important exercise in developing hip drive strength if you train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I see a lot of mistakes. I see a lot of terrible examples of how to do the kettlebell swing, and even seemingly experienced people can have some of these errors when they're doing the swing. So I wanted to give you my take on this brilliant exercise, give you some key pointers that you should follow to hopefully really clean up your swing and make sure you're getting the most out of this exercise. Okay, the kettlebell swing and making sure you're doing it correctly. The first thing I want to start with is the weight. This is a 24 kilo kettlebell, a little over 50 pounds, and that's about 20-25% of my body weight. And I would recommend that for the vast majority of people, unless you've got a specific problem that you're trying to avoid, anything lower than about 20-25% of weight for your kettlebell swings, you're probably not going to get much of a training effect out of it. Why? The main driver behind the kettlebell swing are going to be the glutes, the hamstrings, and the posterior chain, but predominantly the glutes. Now, the glutes are the strongest and most powerful muscle in our body. So, if you use something that's not heavy enough, there's not going to be enough loads and you're not going to get the benefit of this exercise. So obviously you need to find a balance between going too heavy and getting your form right, but anything lower than about 20-25% of your body weight, you're wasting your time. I see people with these small kettlebells, usually they're pink, and they're doing these kettlebell swings, and you're doing nothing, honestly. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, is the weight. Roughly 20-25% of body weight, I think, is a good place to start for most people. Now the next thing, footwear. I'm barefoot, and if you're in a gym or you're doing your kettlebell swings elsewhere, maybe barefoot is not appropriate. Only go barefoot if you can safely do it. But regardless of what you put on your feet, if you have anything on there at all, you want to have a thinner sole as possible and a flat sole as possible. So something that's really flat. Ideally in barefoot, I think, is best. Why? Every time that you've got something that raises the heel slightly, like running trainers, and I see so many people demonstrating kettlebell swings in running trainers, you start, putting everything out of alignment. The heel comes up, the knee goes slightly out of alignment, the hip goes slightly out of alignment, and when you haven't got a strong, stable structure throughout your entire body when you're doing the swings, you're asking for trouble, right? You may be able to do the swing, you may not feel anything, but you start doing reps and reps and reps over time. Those slight imbalances and not having a strong, stable structure right through the leg is going to cause you problems. So a flat sole, absolutely flat sole, or barefoot is the next thing. Barefoot if you can do it safely. Now, I'm doing this by working up the body, as you can see. It's the best way to remember it, I think. So we started off with the weight. The weight's going to be 20-25% of your body weight to start off with once you get into the swings. Then we're talking about the footwear, or lack of footwear if you can do it. You don't want a thick cushion sole. It's a waste of time. The next thing I want to talk about is the knees. This is the other really big problem I see with people doing kettlebell swings. They do this. They bend down with the knees. The kettlebell swing is not a squat. I'll say that again. The kettlebell swing is not a squat. We do not bend with the knees, except at the end of the movement, as they naturally bend through the tension in our glutes and in our hamstrings. We're not leading this movement with a knee bend. And one other exception is when we start off the movement and putting it up and down off the floor. But this, I'll demonstrate the movement now without the kettlebell, and you'll see what I mean. If I'm doing this, I'm loading the quads, okay? Again, our quads are very, very strong muscles, and just coming up and down, you're still swinging it, but it's mainly then going to be that squatting motion that loads the quads. What makes the kettlebell swing so effective is the arc of the swing and the momentum that you generate from the swing. So when you're squatting, you're killing the arc of the swing and you're loading your quads. Useless. If you want to do squats, do squats. This is a kettlebell swing. So we're hinging at the hip. And the knees bend slightly, but it's all about folding over at the hips. I'm exaggerating here a little bit, and I'll talk about the hip hinge in a second, but do not bend the knees, okay? So pick the right weight, be careful of what footwear you use, and do not bend at the knees. Now, the hips. This is critical. This is probably the most important thing that you need to think about when it comes to your kettlebell swing. When you're doing the swing, imagine, and practice this before you actually start using the weight. You put your little fingers on the hip bone and you're almost folding over. Now when you do the swing, you don't bend over here, I'm exaggerating, but you're folding over at the hip, okay? So that's one thing. But the other important thing when it comes to the hip hinge is what you do with your glutes. I don't want to do my hip hinge and just push my ass out, okay? I'm not at the club. I'm not just hinging out here. If I just push my ass back, all the load goes onto the lower back and the hamstrings, but mostly on the lower back. I want to make sure that my glutes are on and my pelvis is kind of tilted up, like I'm trying to drive it up almost to my face, and I keep that drive with the glutes and position of the pelvis as much as I can as I hinge back. So the load is going onto the glutes and a bit on the hamstrings, and yes, on the lower back, but it's not deactivating the glutes. We want our glutes to be active. So when we hip hinge, the glutes are on, the pelvis is pointed up, and I'm driving back like that, not like this. It's a very, very subtle difference, but an important one to take into consideration. But it's all about that, as your arms come down, driving the hips back with the glutes on and the pelvis in the right position. That's what gives you the kettlebell swing. It's that movement, not the knees, that folding over the hips. Practice that 20, 30, 40, 50 times until you really get down and feel comfortable before you actually start using a weight. Now, the next thing you want to consider is the arms, and they need to be loose, like ropes almost. If you're pulling the kettlebell up like you're doing a shoulder raise, you're not doing a kettlebell swing, you're doing a shoulder raise. If you want to do a shoulder raise, do a shoulder raise. This is a kettlebell swing. So these arms are like ropes. They just keep in hold of the kettlebell. They're not driving the motion. And you can exaggerate it. You have a hook grip, but it's not a death grip. So when you come back, it's nice and loose, really nice and loose. That's what the arms need to be doing. And if you really want to, you can get a belt or a towel and put it through the kettlebell handle, and you will see then whether you're pulling up with your arms or not, because it will bend, because there's a natural hinge there. But loose arms like ropes, and when you've got loose arms, nice relaxed shoulders as well. You don't want to be tense when you're doing this movement. Now, moving on to the next point, when we get to the top of the movement, this is very, very important what we do with our bodies. So as we've talked about, we hinge at the hip, the glutes are on, we fold over and drive back with the hips rather than overextending with the lower back. We come down, we get to the bottom point of the movement, and then we come to the top. And when we come to the top, there's a little snap that you want right towards the end. So as you get to the top, really snap those glutes on and tighten the core up, like someone's about to punch you in the stomach. So you come up and like someone's about to punch you in the stomach, everything's nice and tense, really rock solid, and everything's like a big, strong, stable pillar. And as you get up to here with your arms, shoulder blades down and back, chin tucked, and really lock all the way through. This is why another reason why the kettlebell swing is so great. All the way from the tips of your toes right up to the top of your head almost. You're working every muscle in your body. And one of the things you want to consider is the breathing pattern. What I like to do is, as I do that snap, like someone's about to punch you in the stomach, I breathe out, short, sharp breath through the nose, which is, I'm not a boxing expert, but I believe that's what boxers do as well, right? When they throw a punch, they breathe out. Comment below if you know the reason for that, actually. It's been a while since I focused on boxing, but it's a little bit like that if you get the idea. So I get to the top, and it's a short, sharp breath out through the nose. All the time, nose breathing. All the time, nose breathing is my recommendation for this. So that's what you want to do as you get to the top of the movement, and then you reverse it back down. And then when it comes back down, what you want to be aware of is you don't want to get scared of the kettlebell, like you're trying to run away from it. I heard a really good a description of this. Someone posted it on Reddit when I did any questions answered session, and they talked about the swing form. It's like you're trying to play chicken with the kettlebell. It's like, how long can you wait before you pop your hips back? I think it's a really good way to think about it. So I'm not driving all the way back. I'm waiting until the last moment before I pop back and repeat and do the next swing. Okay? Let me demonstrate, but one last pointer as well is when I'm doing the kettlebell swing, I'm driving through the heels. I'm not coming up onto the toes, and sometimes you'll actually see my toes raise slightly, and that can be a good way to practice the kettlebell swing at the start, is by keeping the toes curled up almost. So as you come back down, it forces everything to be on the heels, and you drive through in that movement. Okay, so let's demonstrate and wrap this thing up. So to start off the swing, I'm going to be good posture, shoulder blades down and back, chin tucked slightly, head in a strong stable position, and then from there my glutes are on. I'm going to squat down, I'm going to come down, and I don't need to look at the kettlebell. I can come down like I'm doing a deadlift, like I'm setting up for a deadlift. Glutes and hamstrings are loaded. I get the kettlebell. My elbows are rounded in this position, my elbows are rotated in this position as I grab the kettlebell, but then I'm going to rotate the elbows back to bring those shoulder blades back and shoulders into a strong, stable position. From here, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to hike the kettlebell forward, and then it's going to come back. As it comes back, I'm going to use that to rebound and go into my swings. So I'm going to hike it forward, playing chicken with the kettlebell. And then reset, okay? And as you can see, the kettlebell never goes up that high. I'm not trying to pull it up. It's all about the drive of the hips, and there's a little bit of a flick almost at the end as the momentum of the kettlebell naturally takes it up. But guys, I hope you found those tips useful. If you've not done the kettlebell swing, follow them step by step. If you already do the kettlebell swing, I hope that cleans up some of your form and you've picked up some pointers on how to improve your kettlebell swing. Before you go, click on the little icon in the bottom. Actually, I think it's in the left-hand corner. Click on that button, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to head over to bjjstrength.com, look at the programs, look at the Foundation Strength program, where the kettlebell swing is a core element of that strength training, and also for the 15-minute strength program as well, amongst other exercises that are going to be an excellent way for you to use a pre-built program to get excellent strength gains for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Thank you guys.